Jeshtamanamupi Shuchiputram Atra Surupam Rupam Tasya Kracha Muripurim Maturim Ushtuvatim Radha Kundamagiribaram Oho Radhika Madhvasam Rapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Guru Tamanatosmi Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I bow down with the most profound respect and honor at the lotus feet of my holy master, my spiritual teacher, Asmade Paramaradhatama, Guru Pada Padma, Nityalila Prishta Om Vishnupada, Ashtotara Satasrisimad, Rupanugacharya Varya, Srila Bhaktivedanta, Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I bow down thousands of times with the utmost respect and gratitude to my Guru's Guru, and to his Guru, and to his Guru, and to his Guru, and all the great spiritual masters in our tradition, going back in unbroken line thousands of years to Sri Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. It is not my intention to present to you this evening anything of my own creation, only to be empty like a flute, so that the ancient and perfect transcendental knowledge of the Vedas, descending from ancient times, flowing from spiritual master to spiritual master through the ages, may resonate through me and come to you. I am just the delivery system for this. So secondly, I am bowing down to all the great teachers in our tradition. And finally, thirdly, I offer my pranam, namaskar, my profound respects to all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Vanchakalpatarusa Kripasinam Putyam Vaishnavi Bhuvanam. Srila Gurudeva ki Jai. So I express my honor to you because you are all very kind to me. And this evening you have come here to engage me in the service of the Supreme Lord by speaking and representing his message. Now, what was the title of the lecture this evening? Does anyone remember? why you came here this evening? Right, yeah. I believe the title is How to Find Your Purpose in a World of Confusion. Okay. Everyone wants to find happiness and peace. And security. And as far as possible, love. Everyone is looking for these things. We think, I want to be happy. I want to be peaceful. I want to love and be loved. So, but the question comes, who is this I? Who is this I, this conscious subject who desires these things? What is that being who is the substrate of these aspirations? So we find ourselves in a world where it appears that the environment is quite hostile. So we have to contend with many issues, existential issues, how to survive. And while we are wrapped up in that drama of life, it's rare that a person has the opportunity or inclination to stop and reflect and become introspective and address this question. Who am I? Even if a person has the luxury or the breathing space in the midst of this bitter struggle for existence to address this question, then, after giving it some thought and not coming to a conclusion, then it's once more into the breach, back into the fray, and the mystery remains unsolved because whatever, pressing business is calling. So this is the human condition. Is there an answer to this? Can the question be answered? And what type of benefit will come by answering that question? Fortunately, the Supreme Being, the cause of all existence, through Vedas and through the great saints, has revealed in a very precise and scientific way the answers to this question. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the goal of life? And how can I attain it? So after wondering for many lifetimes, living entities, soul is fortunate, so fortunate, to come in contact with the live current of transcendental knowledge. When you come in contact with this knowledge, you will know that it is true, because you will feel your own consciousness expanding. Practically. You will not need a certificate from anyone else. You will experience yourself. So, The Vedas, they are the most ancient, comprehensive body of philosophical literature known to man. Not that only being old makes something right, because there are many old people who are wrong about lots of things. Still, a tradition that has survived longer than any other tradition, we can think it must have some value. But not just the antiquity of the teaching gives authenticity, but rather it stands in its own light. It withstands the robust criticism and refutes all alternative perspectives. So I want to discuss some mantras of the Vedas which address this particular issue. Who am I? What is the goal of my purpose of life, and how to attain that? So we'll start with an exercise in introspection. An exercise in how to locate my essential being. In Drigdrisha Vivek, there it is stated, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tadrisha Driktumanasam Drisha Divritaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate. The meaning is this. Around us, we see so many forms. So there are two things. The eye is the instrument of vision, and the forms we are seeing, they're the object of vision. So there are two things, the seer and the seen. The eye is seeing, and the forms around us are being seen. Now, that is a superficial, external and obvious and trivial point. Let's go more deeper and become more introspective. And we'll notice that our own mind is seeing or interpreting what the eyes are seeing. So on the first level of deliberation, we become aware that the eye is seeing the physical forms of the world. When we become introspective, we notice that the seer is the mind, and the mind is analyzing the information coming from the eyes. Let's go more internal. Drisha Divritaya Sakshi. If we can be in a state of mental equilibrium, if we can be in a state of inner stillness, then we'll notice that the subject is not even the thoughts of the mind, but I am Sakshi. The word Sakshi means a witness. I am pure consciousness. I am a pure conscious subject, and the object is my mental fluctuations, my thoughts. If you sit still for some moments and try to become introspective, you'll notice that you are not your mind. Your mind has a life of its own. The thoughts are coming and going. The desires are coming and going. It's like, as an analogy, you can go and sit on the beach and watch the waves in the ocean. And so if you sit in a state of introspection, you can notice that you are the conscious subject watching the waves of thoughts in the mind. So from this, it's to be understood that the physical body and the psychological body, or the psyche, the mind stuff, these are two coverings, a gross and subtle covering of Atma, the self. Atma, the self, is identified as Sakshi. Sakshi means witness. When in a state of serenity, we become introspective, then intuitively we experience that I am Sakshi. I am not the mind witnessing the world, but I am Atma, the soul, a conscious spirit witnessing the activities of my mind, senses, and the world going out in that order from an indistinct and presently unknown vantage point of the soul. Yes. So now it may not be clear. It may be indistinct. Yet in our moments of peacefulness, we can experience that is called sakshitva. The quality of being a witness, sakshitva, witnesshood. I am conscious spirit witnessing the mind, the senses, and through the senses extended into the external world from an undisclosed vantage point of the conscious self. That is called Atma in Sanskrit, the self, the soul. So, in the 12th canto of the Bhagavad Purana, which is considered to be really the cream of the Vedic literatures, there, the great saint Shukadev Goswami gives us another exercise. He gives us another way in which we can readily and intuitively find ourselves in the midst of the confusion of the world. There he said, Jagrat swapa shushuptam cha gunato buddhi brittaya thasam vilakshano jiva sakshitwena vinishchita. You may have noticed that your experience is oscillating through three states. There are two phase transitions. So those states are Jagrat, Swapa, Sushupti. In Sanskrit, in English we say Jagrat, the waking state. Swapa means the dreaming state. And Sushupti means the state of deep sleep. So every day you are awake. I hope you're awake now. Try to stay awake. And in the waking state, then you intuitively feel as if you are this mortal body, that you are encased in flesh. That is the waking state. But just see what happens when you become tired and you lie down in your bed and then you begin to dream. Then, when you are dreaming, although that body in which you had placed so much identification is lying still on the bed, you have the experience of whatever, walking and talking and going here and there. Raise your hand. Did you ever dream? Did you ever have a dream that you went to work? Raise your hand. Did you ever have a dream that you were at work? No? So, no, I'm just asking because it shows that in whatever state we're in, we're completely convinced that is true. Because if you'd known that you were dreaming, in that dream when you went to work, you would have taken the day off. You didn't get paid overtime, did you? So just see, whatever state we find ourselves in, we are completely convinced that this is the reality. And that's all there is. Is it true? So just as when you are dreaming, the experience in which you have complete conviction is real, is not the ultimate reality. So in the same way, that reality in which you have complete conviction while you're awake is also not the ultimate reality. You may be saying, I don't believe it. It's very, very real. But if you were dreaming right now, you'd be thinking the same thing. No, I don't believe it. What is he saying? Now, from the waking state, we go to the dreaming state. Then, from the dreaming state, we go into deep sleep. Every night, several times, you're going, sometimes dreaming, there's REM, rapid eye movements, and then you go into deep sleep. And then you come out again, have another dream phase, again go into deep sleep. If you don't actually go into the state, you may be sleeping, but if you don't go into the state of deep sleep every night, then you'll not wake up refreshed. And actually you'll have psychological disturbance and eventually become insane if you don't have that refreshing experience of deep sleep. So now just see, when you're awake, you identify with this body and take it to be the self. When you go into the dream state, that body is left behind. And now you identify with a body produced from your psychological functions in the dream. And you take that to be the self. Then you go into deep sleep. In the state of deep sleep, then the mental functions are relinquished. Just as one gave up the sensory functions in connection to the outer world when you go into the dream state, now when you go into deep sleep, then you give up also the mental functions. Now deep sleep is actually not a state of unconsciousness. Rather, deep sleep is a state of being conscious of nothing. Because consciousness is the nature of the soul. It's not something that can be switched off. Consciousness is the very nature of the self. So we're either conscious of the external physical world in the waking state, conscious of the mental world in the dream state, or conscious of nothing in the state of deep sleep. So here the great saint Shukadev Goswami is saying, Tasam vilakshano jiva, that jivatma, the soul, is vilakshana, different from all the things you experience when you're awake, all the things you experience on the mental platform in dreams, and also the emptiness of deep sleep, because sakshittvena vinishtita, we ascertain our selfhood by being the witness of the phase transitions from one state to the other. Just like you can be standing and watching the sunrise, the day comes, and then it becomes evening, then it becomes the darkness of night, then the day comes. So this is going on in the outer environment. And you're watching it. So in the same way, our Atma, the soul, is actually watching the fluctuations of the states, the waking state, the dreaming state, and then the deep sleep state, and back and forth all the time. And that's our life. Just watching these states go by and thinking that each one is real at every moment. So I'm not saying that the physical world is not real or that there's no reality of the dream world. But what is the illusion is the identification of thinking, I am something of that plane. When I am not something of that plane, I am the Sakshi, situated as the witness of that. And out of ignorance, only out of ignorance, due to absorption, I've become lost in those planes and identify them myself. And this is natural, because that's all our senses, that's all the information our senses are giving us in our ordinary state. I remember when I was a child, my parents took me to Disney World. So there was an attraction there called the Magic Carpet. We didn't know what it was, but anyway, you go through a tunnel into a dark room. Actually, it wasn't so dark. There was some light at first. We went into a room and it was round, completely round. And there were rows of there were handrails, rows of handrails, and everyone filed in between the handrails. Then it became dark. There were no chairs, just these handrails. So then the lights came on, and it was a cinema, but not screen on the wall. It was a 360-degree cinema all the way around. So wherever you looked, you only saw whatever was being shown by the film. So the music began. You could see that we were like in a meadow in the mountains. And in front, you could see, and on the sides, it was like we were standing on a carpet. And then suddenly, the carpet, it was a magic carpet. And it rose up and began to fly through the air. And the carpet was moving very fast through the sky, over the mountains. And then it turned to the left. And when it turned to the left, everyone grabbed onto the rail, went, whoa! And then it turned to the right, and everyone, ooh! Everyone was holding on for dear life. Why? So they wouldn't fall off the floor that was perfectly still. The floor was perfectly still. So why was everyone holding on to the rail, leaning here and there, like this? Because their senses were telling them that they were in motion. It didn't matter where they looked, everywhere they looked. All the senses were saying, I'm moving. I'm going this way, now going up, now we're going down. Like on a roller coaster. Everyone was experiencing it. They were losing their balance. Because all the senses were telling them, we're moving. But they're just standing in an ordinary room on a carpet. The carpet they were standing on was completely still. The ground was completely still. But everyone had that experience because their senses were telling them this. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna has said, Naiva kinchit karomiti. A person who has become introspective, a person who has controlled their mind, who has attained the state of the psychological equilibrium. They understand whether they are standing, sitting, walking, talking, eating, opening or closing their eyes, that the senses of the physical body are interacting with the outer physical world, but the self is doing nothing. The self is perfectly still. You know, people like to go to the cinema and they become so engrossed in the story that when the hero dies, they begin to cry. Why? Engrossment. It's an engrossment. But what are they looking at? They're looking at the three primary colors, mixed together in different proportions and projected onto a white wall. No one was born, no one died, no one suffered. They're sitting in a dark room, staring at a wall. And the three primary colors are mixing together, but they're engrossed in it. And therefore, they're feeling so many emotions. I think I don't have to explain the analogy. You can all feel it. So this is the difference between an enlightened person and a person who is in ignorance. Vidya, knowledge in Sanskrit is called vidya. And the opposite of knowledge, nescience, is called avidya, the absence of realization of truth. So the ordinary person is in this world, is in that condition. We are all souls. We are spiritual beings. We are non-material, immaterial, conscious subjects, atma, souls, transcendental to time. We are not born. We do not die. The soul cannot be killed. It cannot be cut. It cannot be burned. It is indestructible, fundamental unit of reality. There's no danger. There's no death. But we have engrossment due to not being situated in the knowledge of our true identity. We become engrossed in the phase transitions of the mind and the body in the various states of waking, dreaming, and some respite in the deep sleep. Understand? So one may say, but how is this knowledge actionable? If you understand this, then what do you do? And what benefit is there in knowing this? Obviously, a person who develops the introspection and situates their own conscious identity in the self rather than in something external, such a person becomes free from all suffering. There is peace there. But that is not the end of the story. It is barely even the beginning. Because a question must arise. Once we identify ourselves correctly without making a mistake, then the question must arise, well, if I am a spiritual being, why am I embodied? Why am I in this world? Why am I undergoing the tribulations? And if I have no permanent place of security, in this world, is there such a place of permanence? So we want to now address that and present some of the philosophical points given in the Vedas. So the first thing is to know is that just as I am an individual conscious being, and I have a limited amount of control, an expression of my power of volition, so similarly, the cause of myself and of the world and everything in it, and whatever lies beyond it also, is an individual conscious being. So in Sanskrit, the individual conscious self is called Atma. And the supreme conscious being is called Paramatma. Param means supreme. So Atma and Paramatma. So it's Paramatma approximates to the notion that you may have of God. The foundation of the world, the controller of the world, the source of all existence, is addressed by the notion of God. In Sanskrit is said Paramatma. Now, many people, especially today, don't have faith in God, conviction in God. And that's for a number of reasons. Do we have anyone here who believes that God exists? Anyone? No? A few? Okay. Anyone is convinced that God doesn't exist? You can raise your hand. It's not a problem. Yeah, anyone? God doesn't exist? Who's kind of, yeah, one person. And who's on the fence? Who's like, well, I really don't know. Yeah. On the fence. Okay. That's fine. We're all atmas here. We're all souls here. And we want to develop our understanding in the best way possible. And the best way possible is honesty. To always be very honest. So, there's an interesting verse in the Bhagavad Purana. And I like to call this verse the atheist's dilemma. The atheist's dilemma. Vikara kyayamanopi pratyag atmanam antara na nirupyoschano api satyat chitsama atmavat. It's spoken by a great saint named Narad Rishi. And he's suggesting to us why we should have the conviction that God exists. So he's essentially raising this question. You can see the world around you, right? Matter. We all agree that all around us there's so much matter, right? So it's incredible that we're seeing around us everywhere matter, but until this day, no scientist knows what it is. What is matter? If you have an idea of what matter is, then that's an unfinished thought. An unfinished thought derived from mental inertia. In other words, we think about the world and our thoughts kind of roll along. You know, if you roll a stone, it'll roll along and then by inertia it will just stop. So in the same way, when we think about, oh yeah, this matter everywhere. Well, what is it? So our thoughts roll so far, and then by mental inertia, they just come to a stop arbitrarily. We're kind of satisfied with that. What is matter? What is this around us? It's light. Yeah? What is light? Photons. What is a photon? A vibration. A vibration of what? Vibration means movement, but something has to move. Huh? You see, it's very interesting. We think that we have an idea, oh, it's made of atoms. That's fine. And then the mental inertia kicks in. We just stop. But what are the atoms made of? Oh, well, protons, neutrons, electrons, quarks, strings, whatever it is. But always the question comes, what is that made of? So it's difficult to answer. And the reason it's difficult to answer is because our senses have limitations. Our powers of perception there's a perceptual horizon. Just like if you're standing and you look, you can see as far as the horizon, but you can't see what's beyond the horizon. So all of our senses are like that. We have perceptual horizons, and we can see so far, and beyond that, we can't see further. So after that, we have to depend on conceptualization. We try to infer what's beyond. But then when we think about it, we also have a conceptual horizon, and that peters out somewhere, and then it's just, we don't know. We have no idea. Even run out of clues. And so, this is why the question remains unanswered. What is the base level of matter? No one has the answer because the substance that we're investigating continues beyond our horizons. Right? And so then one could say, that's it. The mystery, it's unsolvable. It's an intractable problem. But the great sage Narad, he's saying, no. Think about it in this way. Whatever the base level of matter is, whatever it is, it's either something that has a form or it doesn't have a form. Are we in agreement? Right? There's two options, really. Either the last thing is something that has no form, no shape, or something that does have form and shape. Right? We're in agreement about that. Okay, now let's analyze the results of these two possibilities. So, Nadrish is saying, Bikara kyayamanopi pratyagang atmanam antara, which means, let us take that the base level of matter is a formless, pure potential. Let's just take it as it's a formless, pure potential. And the Greek philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, they also have that, especially Aristotle's metaphysics. He puts forward the idea that the ingredient of the world is a formless, pure potential energy that he calls prime matter. Do we have any Aristotelians here this evening? No? Okay. I just take it from me that that's what he said. Okay. So, and the Vedas actually agree with him. The Vedas say that matter at its most fundamental level is called pradhan, which means a pure, formless potential. Now, how does this pure, formless potential take on the forms that we see around us? How does it become actualized from potential into a particular shape of existing things? There is no context or environment. It's a formless potential. Understand? The environment is the transformation of that formless potential. So how does the formless potential become things that have form?
If it's a high vibrational formless potential,
Yeah.
the lower the vibration, the slower it vibrates, the thicker and denser it becomes.
Okay, but you say vibration. Vibration means movement. So if it's formless, there's not. That means that for something to move, it would have to have a form and change its location within space. You see? So it's a good suggestion, but just become introspective to your own thought processes and see how you took something from your physical experience and then misapplied it to a category where it doesn't apply. And that's a very common thing. And spiritual life is very much a conversation. And in conversation with a guru, with a spiritual master, we become aware of how we superimpose impressions of experience onto things beyond our experience, and then which we can understand that that's a mistake. It's a pramada. It's called pramada, the inability to comprehend something due to the inattentiveness, something lacking in the concentration. That's why meditation is important. The more you meditate, the more the mind becomes focused. Then we become free from these types of errors. So if the ground, the base level of the world is a formless potential, it would require a non-material transcendental being to actualize it into the forms. Right? So we have two options. We don't know what the base level is, but if the base level is a formless potential, then the very fact that the world exists in varieties of forms proves that there must be a transcendental being with intelligence. And as we can see, artistic skills as well. Artistic skills, just look at nature. So then the atheist may say, no, I don't accept that the base level of matter is the formless potential, because now you're trying to trap me. I'm going to end up in the believing in God if I go down that route. I'm going down the other route. I'm going down the other route is that the base level of matter is something that has a form. It's some kind of indivisible, fundamental particle. Right? So many people conceive of this. In the ancient days, in ancient Greece, it's not a new idea. This idea was proposed by Democritus, the philosopher Democritus, who boldly proclaimed that everything is nothing but atoms and the void. And many people today think in that way too. The particles in motion theory. Now, I'm not saying that things aren't made of particles in motion. We're not saying that they're not. We're just saying that that's not the whole explanation. It's not a comprehensive explanation of the world. There's more to existence than that. So now, let's take it that the fundamental basis of existence is some kind of particle. Now, what would that particle be like? First of all, we'd have to say that it's indivisible. Bheda-abheda-tattva, an indivisible principle. Why? Because if it had parts, then it wouldn't be fundamental. The parts would be the fundamental thing. Right? So we all agreed? The last thing is indivisible. Okay? Now the next thing we have to agree is that it must have form, because we've already rejected the formless proposal. That was like trying to get us to believe in a God. So we're going the other way now. Yeah. And so it's an indivisible form. Now the question would arise, this indivisible form, Why would it have the form that it has? Why? Now, in our experience, we see things around us that have forms, and we can divide those forms into two broad categories, two generalizations. And that is those forms that come about by the volition of a conscious being, and those forms that come about just, let us say, accidentally by the random configuration of their parts. For example, let's say you're walking on the beach and the wind is blowing and it's blowing the sand everywhere and it makes sand dunes with ripples in them. So here you can see the shape of the sand dune and the ripples in the sand dune. And when you see that, you think, oh, well, the wind was blowing and all these parts were going everywhere. And just randomly, where they've landed, it in a particular formation or figuration has made this shape. It wasn't done by the conscious will of an individual, you can say. It's an accident. But if you're walking along the beach and you see a sand castle with 4 turrets and flags on each turret, with a gate and a moat around it and the drawbridge down, then what do you think? Did the wind blow it? No, you'll immediately, intuitively, without even thinking for a second thought. Obviously, some person came and made this. Now, we see that when things have parts, there are 2 options. That the parts came together in a particular configuration by, let us say, just relatively speaking, accident. Or they were put together by conscious volition of a person. Right? But we're not talking about something made of parts, a composite entity. We're not talking about a composite thing. When we're speaking about the last fundamental form of matter, then this last thing we've already agreed, it is what? Indivisible. It's indivisible. So an indivisible form can't come about by accident. There's no accident or anything that can happen to make it have the shape that it has. So if it has shape, its shape must be volitional. It must be volitional. Because it has no internal parts. It's the most fundamental thing, so nothing else can cause it to have the shape that it has, because itself is the cause of the shape of everything else. So all we're left with is an indivisible form which has volition. Now, volition indicates consciousness. You can't have volition without consciousness. Because it's indivisible, we must also say that it's eternal. Because something which is temporary because the parts that it's made of come apart from each other. So if something has no parts, it can't come apart. And whatever that particle is, it's the basis of the forms of everything else and all existence. So now we can write down our list of characteristics of our fundamental particle. It's eternal. It's the basis of all existence. It's conscious. It has will. There's a word. If something has will and its form unmediatedly manifests according to its will, that is called omnipotence. You understand? Let's say if you desired that suddenly this room, which is kind of rectangular, should be round. You just desire it. And then instantly it became round. And if anything that you desire could just become like that, that is called omnipotence. When there's no mediating factor between desire and the results, that's called omnipotence. But you're not omnipotent. If you want this room to be round, you'll have to knock down the walls and rebuild them and everything. There'd have to be the mediation of other ingredients and instruments and so on. You see? So when there's an unmediated manifestation between will and form, that's called omniscience. So on the one hand, remember, we're discussing these two options. We don't know what's the base level of existence, but we know it has to be something that has no form or has form. If it has no form, it's a pure potential energy, then there must be a transcendent being who imparts, who activates it and gives it form. On the other hand, if the base of existence does have form, then that form must be eternal, indivisible, conscious, and omnipotent. Wait a minute, that's starting to sound like God again.
I'm just getting stuck on the indivisible piece. So you're saying there's no relationship between that and the universe? What's the connection of this? Within or without the universe? That's the question.
It's the base, we're discussing about the base level of everything, the cause behind everything. So, Narad, the great saint, Narad Rishi, he's just presenting this. It doesn't matter which way you look. If you propose that the basis of existence is formless, there must be a transcendental God. If you propose that the base of everything is something with a form, this form will be conscious, omnipotent, and eternal, and omnipresent. And the cause of all causes, the basis of everything. And that's non-different, that's indistinguishable from our notion of God. Okay? So, what have we established this evening so far? Two things. We've established two things. One, it is a state of illusion or ignorance to identify with the physical body and the psychological mind that we are Atma, we are spiritual beings. This is the first thing we've established. And the second thing we've established is that there is a supreme conscious being who is the ground of all existence. And so now the question comes, if I am a conscious being and the ground of all existence, my origin and the origin of the world is another conscious being, then how can I know that being? Why am I here in this world? So the Vedas describe that when a person tries to understand, makes his research, investigation into reality, then the type of knowledge that he acquires, it can be of 5 types. 5 types. So the first type of knowledge is called pratyaksha. Pratyaksh. Aksha means eyes, and here it's used in a literal and also a figurative sense. It means not only the eyes, but all the senses of perception. So the knowledge that we acquire through our senses is called pratyaksh. And so a person can investigate the world through their senses. Then the next type of knowledge is called paroksh. Paroksh means para-aksha. Para means others, the eyes of others. There are many things that we know, there are many things that we have learned that we have not directly experienced ourselves. But we have collected that knowledge secondhand from the experience of other people. For example, you may have never been to India or Russia or the North Pole, but you have an idea of what it might be like. And you've derived that idea from the pratyaksh, from the sense perceptions of other people, from their verbal testimony or written testimony. So these are the first 2 ways in which a person tries to investigate the world, by their direct sensory experience or by acquiring a conception from the direct sensory experiences of others. And what we know about history also is gleaned from the written records and so on of eyewitnesses. So that's called paroksha. Then the next type of knowledge is called aparoksha. Aparoksha means the negation of both pratyaksha and paroksha. The negation. So this type of path of knowledge is epitomized by religions such as Buddhism, or in India, what is known as Kevaladvaitavad, or impersonalism, because they understand that the physical and the mental are superficial. So there's an endeavor to try to renounce them, or reject them, or negate them. And so the knowledge that you arrive at by the negation of the first two paths, direct perception and knowledge acquired from other people's direct perception, their testimony, by negating that, you come to like a neutral point. And so let's say the Buddhist conclusion is called shunya, emptiness, the void. So by negating everything that's positive, you just end up with a void and emptiness. And so that is called aparoksha. Pratyaksha, perception, paroksha, the testimony of others' perception, or the negation of the two. That is the aparoksha. Then the fourth method is called adoksaj. Ada aksaja. Ada means down. That knowledge that minimizes the value of the knowledge derived from the senses. In other words, this is a far superior knowledge. It is the knowledge, it's the positive knowledge of transcendental spiritual variegatedness. We've discussed three things previously: the physical energy, Atma, the soul, and Paramatma, the supreme soul. Three things. The material energy is inferior, and you raised that point about superior and inferior vibrations. So the material energy is inferior because it's not conscious. So it's inferior to us, Atma, the soul. And God, the source of both the soul and the world, is superior to the soul. So there are three positions: the transcendental spiritual superior position, the unconscious material inferior position, and Atma, the soul, is called in Sanskrit Tatastha Shakti. That means the marginal potency. In other words, the soul, by his volition, can become involved in the inferior energy, or can become involved with the superior energy, become conscious of the Supreme Being. And so our will is a fundamental characteristic. And we should know that at every moment we're expressing our will, and that our will is directional. Our will is directional. We are at every moment directing our will either to the inferior material energy, or we can choose to direct our will towards the superior spiritual energy, or turn towards God. Now, the Supreme Being is the absolute truth, an absolute being. And being absolute and omnipotent, he cannot be challenged. He can only be known by a spirit, a subservient spirit of accepting subordination to his divine might. For example, let's say just now, a person may say, I believe that there's a God, but I don't know him. Now, as we've established, the Supreme Being must be omnipotent, all-powerful. And therefore, the fact that we don't know him is a function of his omnipotent will. Understand? We don't know him because at this moment, he doesn't want us to know him. Right? Because he's omnipotent. If he did want us to know him, we'd know him. Right? So if we don't know the Supreme Being, it means that right now, he doesn't want to know us. Now, if the omnipotent Supreme Being doesn't want to reveal himself to you right now, then how can you find him? You can't. It's impossible. Because he's omnipotent. You can't contradict his will. It's impossible. There were two ants walking along a beach. One ant was saying, "Do you believe in human beings?" The other man said, "No. There's no such thing as human beings." He said, "Well, I'm not sure. Maybe there is such a thing. Let's go and see if we can find." So then the ants were walking along the beach looking for a human being. So then there was one human being, he went sunbathing, he was lying on the beach, relaxing, and he noticed there were two ants walking his way. And he put his hand in the sand, and he picked up a big handful of sand with the two ants still walking in it, and he put the sand down on the other side. And they continued walking. So then after a long time, that ant who had a doubt, he said to his friend, he said, "You were right, there's no such thing as human beings." You see, when there's someone more powerful than yourself, they don't want you to know. There's no way you can know. There's nothing. There's nothing you can do. Right? But the Vedas say there is a way in which we can know. When the Supreme Being wants to reveal himself, then we can know. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo na medaya na bahuna sutena ye meve se vrinute tena labhyas tasyai vivrinute tanam swam. The Upanishads say you cannot know the truth by the intelligence, by applying your intelligence. You cannot know it by great study or even performing Vedic rituals. The supreme truth is only known by that person whom the Supreme Being himself chooses to reveal himself. That's the end of the story. And therefore, every path of investigation of the truth fails except for one: devotion. That is called Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. Because by being dedicated to, by becoming a servant of the Supreme Being, then that Supreme Being who was not allowing us to know him changes his mind. All right, I'll reveal myself to you. That's the only way of knowing a superior entity. Or to speak of a superior entity, even another human being. If another human being you know has a secret, and you want them to tell you, "Tell me, please, tell me this." No. There's nothing you can do. You can't even put them under anesthetic, saw through their skull and dig around in their brain and find out what the secret is. It's just absolutely beyond your method of investigation. But how can you know the secret? If you serve that person, if you love that person, you can melt their heart. And when they decide to tell you, then you can know what the secret is. So when we're dealing with understanding a transcendental Supreme Being, then science, philosophy, renunciation, even meditation, nothing will work. Only one thing will work: Bhakti Yoga, devotion. By becoming submissive, subservient to the Supreme Being, then that Supreme Being, his heart melts and he begins to reveal himself. So, therefore, have you heard of the Gayatri Mantra? Anyone? Gayatri Mantra? The Gayatri Mantra. So all the Gayatri Mantras end with the Prachodayat. Means, oh my dear most Supreme Lord, may you inspire me, may you reveal yourself to me. That's the method. Devotion is the method. So, we have discussed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sorry, 4. We got to 4. 4 types of knowledge. What was the first one? Pratyaksh, what does it mean? Sense perception. Then? Paroksh. Raise your hand. What does it mean, the second one? Yes?
Secondary knowledge.
Yeah, secondary knowledge derived from other people's pratyaksh, sensory perception. Then the third one? Aparoksh. Aparoksh means the negation of the first two to come to the neutral point. In other words, you've negated the material, but you have no experience of the positive spiritual realm. So then there is adoxage. And that is the relationship with God, which is essentially full of reverence. It's full of reverence. That God is a Supreme Being. I am His servant. And there is a realm where the Supreme Being has a spiritual form, and your soul can attain a spiritual form and enter that realm and be related to God as His servant. And be a witness to His unlimited mystic majesty. So that realm in the Vedas is called Vaikuntha. Then the fifth type of knowledge is called aprakrita. Aprakrita. Very beautiful. Aprakrita means the experience of the Supreme Being in a relationship which is filled with intimacy. You see, though we have discussed that we are spiritual beings, we are not this physical body, identification with the body and all the relationships here are illusory in nature, but there has to be a description, there has to be a reason why the varieties of relationship exist in this world. There are relationships between servants and their masters. There are relationships between friends. Friendship is one flavor of relationship or flavor of love. There are relationships between parents and their children and children and their parents, between brothers and sisters, and so on. There are relations between lovers, the romantic relation. So all of these relationships, what's the origin of them? So, Shishti, Stiti, Pralaya, Sadhana, Shakti, Eka, Chayeva, Yasha, Bhuvanani, Vibharti, Durga. Vedic literature said that the material world, which is known as Prakrit, material nature, is like a shadow or reflection of the spiritual world. And of course, Plato also said the same thing. You know Plato's analogy of the cave, that there were persons sitting in a dark cave and they were seeing shadows on the wall. They'd been in the cave since the day they were born, their whole life, and seeing the shadows moving, they took that to be life. And then one of them somehow escaped and he went outside, and at first he was blinded by the light. That was the negation of the illusion, coming to the neutral point. And then when his eyes adjusted, he saw a world full of color and variety. And then when he came back in the cave and told everyone, they said, "You're mad. You're crazy." He said, "Come outside. There's a whole world there. It's wonderful. You don't have to be here in this cave." I said, "Oh, how can we survive without the cave and our shadows?" So a saint is like that. A saint is a person who also has pratyaksh, direct perception, but it's called Vaidusha pratyaksh. It's the direct perception of eternal reality. It is not coming from the mechanical senses of the physical body, but is the direct perception of the soul in the liberated state. So the relationships that we see in this world, our close relationships with our brothers and sisters, our close relationships with our parents and with our children, with our wives and husbands, these relationships are the shadows of in Prakriti, of the aprakrita, the natural world, then the aprakrita, the supernatural world. So the soul can go beyond the majestic relationship of reverence towards the Supreme Being, beyond that to the aprakrita realm, and be related to God in an original perfect relationship, which is the origin of the intimate loving relationships which are reflected in this world. So that is the highest stage. And the reason it's the highest stage is because the divine loving experience is more intimate, complete, and more intense. Now, we've looked at the 5 types of knowledge, and I just want to put some broad categories over them. The state of acquiring knowledge, the state of investigating through sense perception, is a state of active hostility to God. You may not feel like that. We may feel like, yeah, I'm done. If there's a God, maybe there's not, but I'm not against him if he exists. But our very existence in the material world, in which we feel driven to try to enjoy and exploit the world around us and know truth through sensory perception, itself is a state of hostility to God. That is why, actually, in most religions, they say that in this world we are in a corrupt state, we're in a fallen state. And it's a fact. We're in a fallen state, and we have that active hostility to God. So direct perception, pratyaksh, is a state of active hostility to God. Paroksh, the investigation through acquiring knowledge through others' sense perception, is also a state of active hostility towards God. The state of aparoksh, that is just the negation of the other 2 states, is a state of passive hostility to God. If it's not used just as a stepping stone towards a doxage, towards the methodology of knowing, which is the only methodology applicable to knowing an omnipotent being, that is devotion. How many religions are there? There's only one religion. Devotion. Devotion to the Supreme Lord. That devotion may find its expression at different times and places in the world throughout history, may be expressed in different ways. Yet still, the essence of devotion. Someone may, when they want to express devotion to God, say, now we'll sing hymn number 54, and everyone stands up. Some people, they stand up to show their devotion to God. And then others, when it's time to pray, then they bow down. Even though the outer form, the outer expression may be different, but the inner feeling, the essence of it, is the devotion to God. It's like if you go to a church, you have to take your hat off. But if you go in a Sikh Gurudwara, you have to put a hat on. They'll give you a hat on the way in. But so it's the activity is different. But the intention is the same, to respect that which is beyond myself. So the first 2 stages, they are active hostility to God. The third stage of negation of that is a passive hostility to God. And actually, if the negation of sensory experience is not just a passing phase on your way through to devotion, but you remain fixed in just the negation of the material experience, that is considered to be a passive hostility towards God, because there's no mood of service in it. And in one sense, passive hostility is worse than active hostility. Because not only is one in the state of passive hostility denying the existence of the Supreme Being, but you also deny the existence of his creation. So it's worse. At least those who accept the certain reality of the world, even though it's temporary, it's ephemeral, it's perishable, but at least the forms of the world can give us a clue of something greater. And so then the next levels of the knowledge or methods of investigation is they are only the methods of absolute submission, absolute dedication, complete devotion, complete love, engaging the body, mind, and senses in the service of the Supreme Being in two phases. First, the stage of reverence, and then the highest stage, the stage of intimacy. So the form of the Supreme Lord, who is directly perceived by the consciousness of the soul in the state of complete intimacy and pure, unconditional, selfless devotion, that being is called Krishna. Krishna. Now, in this world, if anyone has a name, you have a name because it was superimposed upon you, right? When you're born, you didn't have a name. Then when your parents saw it was a boy or a girl, then they thought, oh, what name? And it was superimposed. So it's called an upadhi. It's not, the name that you have is not an intrinsic part of your being. Now, because as we discussed before, the Supreme Being is akhanda tattva. That means an indivisible entity. So because the Supreme Lord is an indivisible entity, every part of his nature cannot be separated from himself. And because his name was not given by anyone at any point in time, he's eternal. So the names of God are co-eternal with him, and they're an intrinsic part of his indivisible essence. And so because the names of God cannot be extracted, they cannot be separated from his indivisible essence. Therefore, the name of God and God himself are one, they are non-different. So in Western theological terms, this idea is called onomatodoxy. Onomatodoxy means the theological conception that God and his name are the same being. They're the same thing. There's no difference at all. And so the Vedas, they describe Rigvedo ta Yajurveda Samaveda Pyatarvana Aditas Tena Yenoktam Hari Itte Ityakshara Dvayam. It means there are four Vedas. The Vedic literature is divided into four: Rig Veda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda, Yajo Veda. So it's considered a person has completed his study of all the Vedas simply by uttering the two syllables Hari. Hari. It's one of the names of Krishna. So it's poetic, but it's salient. It's so profound, significant. What does it mean? If a person has uttered the two syllables of the names of God, Hare or Krishna, that they've completed their study of all the Vedas. It means this. Let's say this evening we discussed so many philosophical points about the material world, about the soul, about the Supreme Being, about the methods of approach, the methods of approach that will not work because they're fundamentally based on hostility towards God, passive or active, and the method that does work, devotion, and so on. So all of these things are described in the Vedas. But the purpose of this knowledge is to inspire us and encourage us to take up the activity of devotion, bhakti yoga, to take up the life of devotion. Why? Because that is the dharma. It is the religion, actually, the universal religion of the soul. The word for religion in Sanskrit is dharma, and it comes from dri dhatu, the verbal root to hold. In other words, the function of a thing which it holds and can never be separated from, which arises automatically from its very nature, is called dharma. So here, when we say dharma or religion, we're not speaking about a set of doctrines or dogmas, but we're talking about a dynamic activity which is the nature of the self itself. For example, what is the dharma of fire? Is there such a thing as Indian fire, Russian fire, New Zealand fire? Fire is fire. And it has a dharma. Its dharma is to emit heat and light and burn, combustion. So that's the dharma of fire. That's what it does. The fire may be in New Zealand, but it doesn't make it New Zealand fire. Fire is fire. What is the dharma of sugar? To taste sweet. So the sugar may be white sugar, brown sugar, lumps, cubes, powder, whatever. If it's not sweet, it's not sugar. So the sweetness is its nature. So that's its dharma. So in the same way, when we speak about Vedic dharma, our Vedic religion, we're not speaking about some religious conception that had some time where it appeared in history due to some charismatic leader. But rather we're speaking of the intrinsic activity that arises from the very construction, for want of a better word, from the very form, the nature of the soul. So when the soul has turned, when we turn our attention away from God, then we become engulfed in illusion. And when we turn our attention towards God, then that illusion slips away. And the method of turning the attention towards God is called bhakti yoga, devotion, which at first is done. We think, okay, let me try some of these activities of bhakti yoga. We think like this. And we engage the physical senses in those activities. By doing this, the physical senses, the body and mind in which we're encased, become purified. And then the soul becomes liberated from that encasement. And the soul's natural activity manifests. So bhakti is not something that you do exactly physically. That's the first stage. But once the senses and mind become purified, then the soul spontaneously acts in the way of unconditional love towards the Supreme Being. So bhakti yoga is not a religion that you take up. Bhakti yoga is the uncovering of your soul's natural spontaneous activity in eternity. So bhakti is called amrita, immortal nectar. Now, in the Bhagavad Purana, it is said, Etavan eva lokesmin pumsam dhamma parasmrita bhakti yogo bhagavati tannama grahanadibi. The bhakti begins, it begins with, and also in the middle, and also at the end. It has many forms of expression, but the fundamental expression of bhakti is the chanting of the holy names, the repetition of the mantra. by engaging the tongue and the ears and the mind and absorbing them in the names of the Supreme Being. Remember, we discussed how the name of the Supreme Being is non-different from that being himself. And so absorbing the mind, the senses, the tongue, the ear, fully in the name of God facilitates that turning of our consciousness away. It is the relinquishing of the states of hostility. And it facilitates the surrender and the turning of the attention to the Supreme Being that causes one to be liberated from all illusion and have first the perception of God from the majestic aspect and ultimately in the aspect of the pure and very intimate loving relationships with Krishna. And this is why one of the most important practices, fundamental practices, and the most effective practice is mantra meditation. Mantra meditation, the repetition of the holy names. At first, when we begin to chant, then it's just a material sound vibration. But the act, when we begin to chant, is an expression of our soul's will that we want to turn away, to relinquish our hostility and become absorbed in devotion. So once that service mood is there, then the Supreme Being himself, in the form of sound vibration, the sound incarnation, descends onto our senses and he begins to reveal himself. So those who have practiced meditation daily through mantra and gone through the stages of remembrance and concentration and meditation and then entered into trance, they've had experience in trance, that is in samadhi, of the beauty of that Supreme Being, Krishna. Krish means beautiful, attractive, and Na means Ananda, joy, the joy of love. So that Supreme Being is so beautiful. They have described, he's a musician, he plays on a flute. He has a beautiful smile. His hair is decorated with peacock feathers. He likes to dance. Yeah, okay. Here's some artist impressions. The artist impressions are not exactly like that, but you have to start somewhere. Something like that. But that being who is the origin of whatever is beautiful in this world must be more beautiful than all of the things put together, because they're only just small fractions of his own beauty. And therefore, Krishna is God has unlimited names, but Krishna is the prominent name of the Supreme Being. Now, mantra meditation. What is this mantra meditation? Manomadhyestito mantro, mantramadhyestitam mana, manomantram samayuktam etadhi japalakshanam. Japa means repetition of mantra. The japa, the repetition of mantra, has this characteristic that one first puts the mantra in his mind. So first you begin to utter the mantra and you put that, you don't say it with your mouth and then your mind thinks of something else, going shopping or whatever. You have to firmly situate the mantra in your mind, that there's nothing else in the mind. And then put your mind inside the mantra. So that's, with 3D things, you can't do that. If you have a box and you take another box and you put the small box inside the big box, but then you can't put the big box inside the small box. So in the regular 3-dimensional world, it cannot happen. But luckily, on the platform of the mental energy and with the sound vibration, you put the mantra in your mind and then you put your mind in the mantra and you mix the two together in such a way, manomantram samayuktam, that they're so united that they're indistinguishable from each other. In other words, now nothing exists except, there's nothing in your field of awareness except for the mantra. And that is called mantra meditation. And if a person can remain balanced in that position, then gradually, what happens? All the layers of illusion fall away one by one. One realizes I am Atma, a soul. One rises to the aparoksha platform, that is the negation of the material, and keeps moving and enters into a direct vision of Krishna, the Supreme Being. So I want to, with everyone, just try this just for a minute. Usually in the tradition, when we do mantra meditation, and this is actually common to many religious traditions, that prayers are performed with the aid of a rosary. So in the Vedic tradition of ancient India, a rosary is also used. That's just to keep count of how many mantras you have meditated upon, and so that you can understand each day how many mantras you've chanted, and gradually increase. So I just want to invite everyone just to participate in a mantra meditation just for a minute together. So the mantra, there are various mantras, but the most important mantra recommended by the Vedas for this age is called the Maha Mantra. So is it on the wall somewhere? So you can learn the mantra. You can repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna means the all-attractive Supreme Being. Hare means his energy of love. And she has his embodied in a female form. Hare Krishna, the Supreme Being and his energy of love. And Hare Rama, Ram means one who gives joy. Also, it's a name for Krishna. So now, japa meditation, what does it mean? Put the mantra in your mind, nothing else. Then put your mind in the mantra and mix the two together and remain in that state of balanced awareness. So we'll just for a minute, we can perform some japa meditation. And you'll see that when you open your eyes, how your consciousness is practically expanding. And as you go on meditating, it will expand more and more and more until enlightenment and pure love is attained. Are you ready? Yes? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. No distraction. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Put the mantra in your mind. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Put the mind in the mantra. Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Mix the two together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Yes, thank you. That was the longest minute of your life. Actually, when you begin to meditate, as if time stretches, it seems to be taking a long time just to complete one mala or to pass 5 minutes. So that is the restlessness of the mind. The passion is coming. But no doubt, you can all, I'm sure you all feel somewhat disembodied already just by chanting mantra for some time. You begin to feel disembodied. To attain the state of witnesshood, that you're witness of your body, witness of your mind, that you're actually Atma, and all the addictions and hankering of the senses. If you were previously thinking, oh, I need a cigarette, or I need to drink some coffee, or whatever the various addictions are, all the senses become calm and quiet. You no longer become dependent for your happiness on the external world, but the soul's own inner happiness is beginning to shine. So the chanting of mantra is done primarily in Bhakti Yoga in two ways. One is your own private meditation. That is the japa as we've just done. And then the other type is a more public, congregational meditation. And that is when the mantra or various names of the Supreme Lord are sung with music. And this is extremely powerful. Because if you're sitting alone and meditating, your mind may wander and you may look here and there. But if you're with a large group of people and everywhere you look, everyone is singing the mantra, then it reinforces your own concentration. It reinforces your own absorption. And another thing is that music is beautiful. And so when it's called kirtan, when the chanting of mantra is performed with exotic melodies and beautiful drum beats and the beautiful melodies, ragas, then it's very easy. We naturally become absorbed in music, right? It's a favorite pastime for most people. Listen to some music. It changes your mood as well. By hearing music, you can become excited about something. You can become, a lot of music today is meant to make you become sexually agitated. But when there is the spiritual transcendental music, then it uplifts us, it elevates us, it ennobles us, it invigorates us with noble thoughts and further aspiration to seek out our ultimate goal of life, which is the union of the soul with the Supreme Being in a state of perfect love. So we'll just complete our seminar today with a musical meditation. And you're invited to listen. If you feel inspired, you can also sing. If you feel the irresistible urge to get up and dance, then don't be shy. Don't be inhibited. Throw all your ambition and inhibitions outside and just dance with abandon, because that's also an expression of love for the Supreme Being.